Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Matchbook Champions League podcast. I'm Phil Kitromilides. We're here to look ahead to Matchday 5 in the Champions League, the penultimate round of group games in this season's tournament. Usually on the podcast, I'm joined by two experts, but for the first time ever, Mark O'Hare is ill. He's a man, he's got flu, he's got man flu. I'm sure he'd appreciate if we perhaps got the hashtag Pray for Mark trending on Twitter. That's up to you. I'm sure it'll help. But I am joined by Brodders from Betting Emporium to sift through some of the most interesting games on Tuesday and Wednesday. Hello, Brodders.
Hello there. Hi, Phil.
You feeling okay?
I'm soldiering on. I've got a bit of man flu as well, but nothing like Mark. So
okay. Good. Well, thanks for braving.
You have to pray for me.
Yes. All right. I don't have to pray for you, but thanks for braving the man flu and coming on to talk about the fifth round of games in the Champions League. Before we get to it, just want to mention that now you can place accumulators. You can place ACCAs on Matchbook, which is obviously great for Champions League matches and Champions League nights when there are goals flying in all across the continent. You're sitting down watching the Champions League goals show. It's great to have an accumulator on. You can now do that on Matchbook, so we're very pleased about that. Brothers, let's get right to it because we've got plenty of things to talk about. We want to kick off by talking about Chelsea's trip to Valencia. Your team, Chelsea, travelling to Mestalla in Group H, which is incredibly tight. There are three teams on 7 points, Ajax, Valencia and Chelsea. By the way, in the group winner market, they're all on 7 points, but Chelsea are 2.06 to win the group, Ajax 2.47 to win the group, and Valencia 4.7 to win the group. That's despite having a home game against Chelsea on Wednesday. Let's talk about that game. And Valencia are 3.4 to win on the night. Chelsea 2.26, and the draw is 3.76. Brothers, how are you approaching this game? And obviously, not from a Chelsea perspective, from a making some lovely money perspective.
Yes, well, that's always
that's the idea. Yes,
exactly. I think you've really touched on how close the group is. So you've got three teams there on 7 points. So this is a huge game. I mean, the reason that Valencia are the outsider of the three to win the group is they've got to travel to Ajax for their final game. So, and Chelsea are at home to Lille. So on the face of it, you can see that Valencia have got the hardest run in of the three of them. I think we can keep this game nice and simple. I think at the Mestalla, Valencia, we know, are a very, very strong side. The crowd do have a tendency sometimes to get on their backs if things aren't going quite as they're expecting. But I think, generally speaking, you've got a Valencia side that can score and create goals. I expect them to have the majority of the possession in this game, and for Chelsea to try and look to counter, which they do very, very effectively away from home. And we saw at the weekend, Chelsea put in a fantastic first half hour or so against Man City and showing all the quality that they've got. And as a Chelsea fan, I try to stay sort of as neutral as I can with these things. But they're playing a very exciting brand of football at the moment, which is seeing them score lots of goals and seeing them concede lots of goals as well, which is not so good. You look at their away form this season, and Chelsea have played 9 games away from home. And I think away football sets up very well for them. So in those 9 games, they've won 7. They lost to Man United on the first day of the season in a game which they played very well in. And Manchester United just happened to take all 4 of their chances in a slightly weird XG battle. And then, of course, they lost at the weekend to Man City 2-1. Probably should have been 3-1 rather than sort of our friend at VAR. But you look at the games they've had in between that, and they've scored, 4, 5. They've scored 4 twice, 5 once, 3. This is a team that really sets up well on the counter, and I think Valencia are a side that concedes goals.
They are now. They had a strong defensive unit under Marcelino, but since the change of manager, it's not. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, Marcelino's left, and I mean, it seems as though the players and the squad have got behind Chirolas, and they are playing for him, and results have been reasonable, I would say. In the last month or two, they've certainly. I know they lost at the weekend to Betis, but prior to that, they've won 3 in a row, and I think the style of football that they play is one that generally is going to lead to goals in games, and especially at home. So I think in this particular game, without, I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel, we can get over 2.75 goals. At the moment, the market's the spread's quite wide. So, you have to back at 1.862 or the layers 1.962. I think if you put a price in there somewhere in the middle, if you can get somewhere around 1.9 or higher, getting a half-stake win for 3 goals and a full-stake win for anything over that, I think is very good value. I mean, we touched earlier in the season that Chelsea, pretty much any game they play, and if you're getting, goals at somewhere near even money, it's going to be, you're not going to have a bad bet. And I think with this, the stakes of this game so high, it's really important because, of course, Valencia beat Chelsea 1-0. So in the game at Stamford Bridge, which I mean is extraordinary, it's 1-0. I mean,
rather fortuitously, yes. Although Valencia have been quite lucky because they beat Lille 4-1 in their last game, and that was not a 4-1 game if you saw the game. And actually, when they drew against Lille as well, and they could easily have lost that game as well. So they have been a bit fortuitous.
But I think Lille is the common thread. Lille in the group that so far this season have been, extraordinarily unlucky. They've played way better than the results would suggest. And I think if you look at the need for Chelsea to try and win this game, because when it comes to sorting out who's above who in the group, the first one is head-to-heads. So, Valencia and Chelsea finish on the same number of points. Yeah. As is possible, if Valencia win this game, for example, and then Chelsea beat Lille, Valencia would be above Chelsea on the differential. So, Chelsea have got to approach this positively. They've got to try and win it if it's all possible. Certainly get a draw, and then they're in a decent position and hope that Ajax do them a favour in the last game. So. Okay,
there we go. So goals at Matchday, Valencia against Chelsea. From your team, Chelsea, to my team, Spurs, who are hosting Olympiacos, the Greek side, in Jose Mourinho's first Champions League game in charge of Spurs. Still sounds a bit weird saying it, but there we go. I know. You can get Spurs at 1.30 to beat Olympiacos. The Greeks are at 12.5 to win in North London. And the draw is around about 6.3. Obviously, Spurs, very, very heavy favourites for this. They had a bit of a dodgy start to their Champions League campaign, not least the first game in Piraeus when they were 2-0 up and threw away that 2-goal lead to draw 2-2 with Olympiacos. That's the only point that the Greek side have managed in the group stages so far. They've lost their 3 subsequent games. They've got an awful away record in the Champions League as well. They've lost each of their last 5 matches on the road. How can we get some value out of this game, brothers?
I think we just keep it simple again. I think Spurs are, rightly or wrongly, they've replaced Pochettino with Mourinho.
We don't need to get into that. Yeah.
Well, what we're likely to see is a short term, at the very least, uptick in performances. You often see this with new managers, the new manager bounce. And I thought that certainly for the first hour or so against West Ham at the weekend, they played some very good football. Dele Alli looked like he wanted to play football again. And one thing Mourinho can do as a manager is instill confidence in players and to engender that sort of bunker mentality of us against the world. And, I think tactically he might be being left behind a little bit by some of the more modern coaches, the Tuchels and the Klopps and the Nagelsmanns and, that sort of generation of young German coaches especially who are bringing this sort of fabulous attacking football into vogue. But you can't, ultimately you can't get away from the fact that Mourinho is a top class manager. He's won this competition twice. He knows exactly what needs to be done in games like this. I think the other factor is that Spurs know that with a win in this game, that guarantees them qualification. So, Bayern are playing Red Star in the other game. So obviously if Bayern win that game, Spurs qualify anyway, irrespective of the result here. Well, not irrespective of the result, because if Olympiacos win, then, potentially they could get overtaken. But, pretty much, you would expect Spurs to approach this game on the basis of we're going to tear into them, we're going to win this comfortably and make our lives easy for the final game. We can't catch Bayern, and it gives us a game off for the final group game. So I like Spurs. You look at the quality of the side. Obviously, they got to the final last year, which was fortuitous. No one would argue that they were the second best side in the competition. Not even you wouldn't argue that, Phil.
All right.
No more than I would argue that Chelsea were the best side when we won it.
Yeah.
But you look at the quality they have. I think when they played in Greece, they went 2 up very, very early and kind of sat back and showed that sort of lazy mentality, which a lot of Spurs performances had around that time, and allowed the Greeks come back into it. I just can't see that happening here. I honestly see this being a very, very straightforward Spurs win, 3-4 goal margin, and I'm going to back them at -1.5. And again, you're getting, there's quite a wide spread still, but anything around sort of 1.85 to 1.9 to me, I think is value for them to win by 2 or more goals, because I think the Greeks will see their final game with Red Star. I think they'll expect Red Star to lose to Bayern, and I think they will see that as an opportunity for them to qualify for the Europa League if they win the last game. So, keeping it simple.
Just saying, with a new manager in charge, a manager that's won this competition twice, Spurs 27.0 to win the competition. I'm just saying. I'll just put it out there, just in case you're interested.
Where was the decimal point there?
Let's move on and talk about another game that's taking place this week. Atalanta against Dynamo Zagreb. Dynamo, who beat Atalanta 4-0 on Matchday 1, which was one of the most surprising results that we've had so far in the group stages. But they're playing in Bergamo this week, and we know that Atalanta are a good side to watch. They're 1.62 to win at home. Dynamo are 6.0, and the draw is at 4.5. Ian, you like watching Atalanta. What's the angle for that game?
I think the angle is going to be goals. I think Atalanta have still got the possibility of qualifying extraordinarily. They have 1 point after 4 games, but they've got to play Dynamo and they've got to play Shakhtar, who are both above them in the group. So they're both on 5 points and Atalanta on 1. So if Manchester City can win their final 2 games and help Atalanta out, then qualification is still within their grasp, which is interesting. I mean, anyone who watched the game at the weekend with Juventus would have seen the fantastic football that Atalanta are capable of. And they played that game without 2 or 3 of their best attacking players in Ilicic, Malinovsky and Zapata. And Muriel was unavailable, having come back from international duty with a slight injury. So I'm expecting Malinovsky and Ilicic to start this game. I'm also expecting one of Zapata or Muriel to be fit, probably Zapata. I suspect they've kind of saved him for this game, maybe. And what what you're getting with Atalanta and Gasperini sides. They play this sort of all-out attacking style, which is incredibly entertaining to watch, but also ends up leaving them in games such as the game at the weekend, where they can often be a little bit unlucky, where they dominate the play, have some fabulous football and some fabulous chances, and end up conceding goals. And if you look at their home record, I mean, they've conceded in their last 8 home games. I think if you look back, which is all of their games this season, I should say. If you look back, they've only failed to score in one of those games, which is at home to Cagliari, which was a weird game. But this is a side that's capable of mixing it with the best sides in Europe. And I backed them to win in Zagreb on that first day of the season because I thought that they were a substantially better side. I still think they're a better side than Zagreb. But I think what they've suffered from is just naivety. And the naivety we see in Serie A with their defensive shows has been exposed in the Champions League by sides who have got that experience edge. I've been impressed with Dynamo. The reason that I want to look at goals in this game is I thought that Dynamo have been better than I thought they were going to be. They've got some very, very good young players. I think if you look at their performance in Shakhtar on the last round, where they ended up drawing 3-3, they were leading 3-1 in that game. Sorry, forgive me. Sorry, the other way around. Dynamo were at home leading 3-1. They were leading 2-1 in Shakhtar. But, with players like Olmo and Orsic, they're really, really got these players who can play well on the break, knock it around, create chances and score goals. They've got a decent target man in Pekovic. And this is a side that will cause Atalanta problems because anyone with a half-decent attack does. So one of those situations where Atalanta have to go for it. And frankly, it doesn't matter because they always go for it anyway.
Yes.
So it's not like, the situation is that if they don't win this game, if they only got a draw from it, they're basically not even going to qualify for the Europa League. So, they've got to really just go for it, go for the win. Over 3 goals is priced around even money. And I think if you look at the way that, Dynamo play as well, for their last 2 games with Shakhtar finished 2-2, 3-3, it really wouldn't surprise me if we saw that type of game again, which is just very open and sides scoring plenty of goals. And I think getting your money back if there's 3 goals is almost a bet to nothing with Atalanta these days. So.
Yeah, no, that's another compelling argument. That does sound like a very good bet indeed for Atalanta against Dynamo Zagreb. The last game that we're going to take a look at is at the Bernabeu. It's the biggest game on Matchday 5, I think, certainly in terms of the profile of the sides, although there is a big game in Turin as well, Juventus, Atletico Madrid, which I want to have a quick word about after this. But Real Madrid against PSG. You can get Real Madrid to win at 2.37. PSG offered around about 3.04. The draw at 3.84. Ian, as he did last year, has backed PSG to win the Champions League again. One of these years, it's going to come true, Ian. Whether or not we're going to be around to see it, it remains to be seen. But yeah, PSG will potentially win the Champions League at some stage. But what do you think is going to happen at the Bernabeu?
I really don't know. I think it's one of those games which is interesting, and it'll be an amazing game to watch, I suspect. But I think it's very hard to have a bet in it, if I'm honest. And I think we're going to have a chat about the game and the dynamics and so on. But I think if you look at the group at the moment, PSG are top with 12 points, having won all 4 games. They've not conceded a goal yet, and Real Madrid are second on 7 points. And then you've got Bruges on 2 and Galatasaray on 1. So we all saw the first game. We saw the first game when Real Madrid were absolutely outplayed. And PSG won that first game 3-0 with none of their superstars as such playing. So, there was no Neymar, there was no Mbappe. They didn't have Cavani, but they still just controlled the game and won very, very easily. Now, you're a Real Madrid man, and obviously you've seen their performances improve of late, I would say, although there still seems to be this discontent in the camp that's just sort of bubbling under. We've got the Gareth Bale situation recently where... But
that's not in the camp, that's the media. I think the team are actually quite settled. They're not too bothered about that.
I was thinking more about the fans. Didn't the fans?
The fans, yeah.
The fans had a banner for him at the weekend, didn't they?
The fans whistled Gareth Bale when he came on, but he came on and played really well the last half an hour.
He did. No, and there's no doubting his quality. He's a top player. So I think what you've got here is a situation where if Real Madrid win this game, PSG probably aren't that fussed. Because if they don't lose by 3 goals, there's going to be, they're still going to have an advantage on the head-to-heads, and they've got to play Galatasaray at home in the final game, and they just need a draw probably to then top the group. So PSG are in an incredibly strong position. So this is where the difficulty lies when you're trying to have a bet, because whenever I'm trying to have a bet, I want to have a fairly good idea of how a team's going to approach it, both tactically and mentally. And the issue you have with this PSG side, and we've touched on this 1,000 times, is the fact that they are flaky. There's no 2 ways about it. They've shown themselves that, and I wouldn't put this in a camp of being like a huge game for them. I think it's a game that they can be reasonably relaxed in for the reasons we just touched on. But again, you've got this situation where Neymar's just come back and again is causing trouble. I backed PSG when the news came that Neymar was going to stay for this season. And I hoped he was going to get his head down, he was going to stay fit, and he was going to perhaps look to show everyone the player he is, and then, get a move to, presumably Barcelona, which is where I think he wants to go.
You're an optimist. That's good.
I am an optimist. Yeah. I like to see the good in people.
Yeah.
Although Neymar, let's face it, is a complete idiot. I mean, this business when, flying to Barcelona to watch the tennis when he's recovering from an injury prior to the game against Lille. And then, he played okay against Lille. I mean, obviously he was a bit rusty. He's unbelievable talent. And then he gets substituted off for Mbappe and then just walks straight down the tunnel. Ignores the manager, ignores his teammates, and just goes to the dressing room. And you just think, honestly, just be, just, you just feel like someone needs to be around him. Mm. Give him a slap and just say, look, for goodness sake, be a professional. Just use your talent. And because you've got this unbelievable talent. I mean, arguably, I would say he's, in pure football terms, he's up there with Messi. I would say, Ronaldo, I think, is slightly different in that Ronaldo is more about sort of athleticism and technique and power. But just for pure football, I mean, I would pay to watch Neymar and I'd pay to watch Messi every day. Right. Sorry, anyway, I'm digressing. So we don't know really whether or not Neymar...
For what you're saying, if I was taking what you were saying, I would back Real Madrid then, because they have an absolute need to win this game. PSG aren't that bothered. Real Madrid have been playing better in recent weeks. They've been scoring goals as well. They're at home. It's the Champions League. Mentally, certainly, they'll be more motivated in this game, and it looks like they're a better bet.
I wouldn't put people off that, per se. I don't think that's necessarily a bad...
And 2.37 for Real Madrid to win any game at home is a pretty good price, to be honest.
But the problem you've got is that they were so outclassed and outplayed by PSG in the first game that it's very hard. And I appreciate being at home is different from being away, and we've talked about that with Barcelona ad infinitum.
Okay.
I think, and you're right. I mean, I think if I was going to have a bet, I would probably back Real Madrid. But I think it's one of those games where if you've got Mbappe and Neymar countering against this Real Madrid defence, I think, again, defensively, they've not looked solid at all this season. And I just think that PSG have the ability, and then you can't ignore the 2-2 draw with Bruges or the bad performances they've thrown in this season.
Okay, fair enough. I understand that. Take all that on board. So we're not necessarily recommending a bet, although I'm edging towards Real Madrid. But that's
look, if you felt like you needed to have a bet in the game, then taking Real Madrid to win it is probably fair, but it won't carry my money.
Fair enough. Before we move on and tell you about our sign-up offer, I very briefly wanted to touch upon a game. Given that Mark's not here, I'm not here to give tips, but I thought, why not? I really like the look of Juventus to beat Atletico Madrid at home, 2.16. I've watched quite a lot of Atletico Madrid so far this season. They have really struggled in front of goal. Alvaro Morata's been scoring goals, but apart from that, nobody's really been chipping in. They've got a really poor record away from home as well in the Champions League. They've only won 2 of 11 games. Juve, we know, are extremely strong at home. They've not lost a game in any competition so far this season. And they were much better than Atletico Madrid when they met at the Wanda Metropolitano on the first match day, I think it was. They went into a 2-0 lead, then they just took their foot off the gas and conceded 2 late goals, and Atletico came back into it and got a 2-2 draw. But, Juve to win 2.16. I like the look of that, Brodders. You don't even need to give me your opinion, although you can.
No, I'm perfectly happy with that. Juventus are a fabulous home side. If they win it, then they sort up the group. I think it's, for the reasons you said, I think it's a perfectly fair bet.
Good. There we go. I've been backed up by Brodders. I feel vindicated. That's good. Before we get Brodders' bets of the week, I want to tell you about Matchbook's sign-up offer. You get a £10 refund if your first bet loses. It's a sign-up offer. All you have to do is create your account, place your first bet within 7 days of signing up. If that bet loses, we will refund your stake as cash to a maximum of £10. ACCAs are excluded from this offer. Refunds applied within 72 hours. More terms and conditions are on the website. It basically means you're getting a £10 bet to nothing, really, because if you lose that bet, he gets refunded. So you're essentially getting a free bet. Brodders, what would you do with a £10 bet that you know you're going to get refunded if it loses? So almost basically a free bet. What value bet have you picked out for that £10 bet?
I think out of principle, we touched on the fact that Lille have played way, way better than their performances, than the results have shown. They do come here off a loss to PSG at the weekend, but I think Lille are 4.05 or 4 to win at home against Ajax. And I think there will be far, far worse 3-1 shots kicking around over the next few days than that. So if I was going to have one sort of throw a dart at the board, I'd back Lille at 4.
At home against Ajax, they're 4.05. Yes. That's a pretty that's a good use of a £10 free bet, I'd say. So there are loads of games up and down Europe this week. It is Matchday 5 of the Champions League. We're going to get Ian Broderick's best bet of the week. Brothers, what is your best bet of the week for Matchday 5 of the Champions League?
My best bet of the week will be over 2.75 goals in the Valencia versus Chelsea game.
Okay. Chelsea going for it. They're an open, expansive side. Valencia don't necessarily defend as well as they used to. They score goals at home as well. So we're thinking there's going to be at least 3 goals in that game at Mestalla. That's it for this edition of the Matchbook Champions League podcast. Brothers, thank you very much for ploughing through that man flu and joining me and giving us some really good tips. Actually, hope it's been useful. We'll be back to look ahead to Matchday 6. In a couple of weeks' time. Remember to always subscribe to the Matchbook Betting Podcast on your preferred podcasting app.